From the Oklahoman newsroom, you're watching the Press Row. I'm Jenny Carlson, about to be joined remotely by Barry Trammell. Lots to talk about basketball-wise. And Barry, you're joining us today from?
The shadow of Disneyland.
Very nice. Very nice.
Unfortunately, the room, they gave me a city view, which there's not much city. It's just sprawling suburbia. But I guess the other side of the hotel has the Disney view.
So you have not seen any large Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse impersonators running around your hotel just yet, I suppose?
No, but driving to the arena, you pass by part of the park, and you see some of the big rides, I guess, that you can see from the outside. And you see about 9,000 people on the streets walking to the theme park. So they seem to be making a profit at Disneyland. I think they're going to make it.
I think so. I think so. Yeah, for sure. Well, Barry, you're in Anaheim, where later today, we're talking on Thursday morning, but later today, the Sooners will play their Sweet 16 game there in Anaheim, and 6:30 or so Oklahoma time tip. But you had a chance to write about and catch up with Kadeem Lattin. Obviously, we know around here, but his granddad, David Lattin, a member of the Texas Western basketball team, the Glory Road team, as people now know them, 50th anniversary. Barry, just really neat convergence of timing and obviously the Lattin family. Talk a little bit about the story, and what did you learn from all of this? Because you're a history guy, so you obviously know a lot about Texas Western, Don Haskins, and just the history that lies there.
Well, you know what? I actually didn't learn a ton because it is one of my favorite subjects, and I loved Don Haskins. Got to know him late in life, and was down in El Paso with him once for 2 days, and he got to where he'd call me and talk OSU basketball. So I didn't learn a lot. What I had forgotten, I actually tip of the cap to Jackie O. You reminded me that Mo Iba was his assistant, and Mo was in Stillwater yesterday, and you chatted with Mo for me. So that was, I'd forgotten all about that. So that was great. But what I learned about the Lattin relationship, Kadeem is he's not hesitant to talk about it, but it's not really his favorite subject. He doesn't really like to expound on it. I think he's a little sheepish. He wants to make his own way. His granddad, Big Daddy, David Lattin, is a lot more, he's a lot more fired up about the subject, fired up about his grandson. He's talks a little bit crazy when he talks about Kadeem and how good he could be. Wants him to lead the NCAA in rebounding and block shots. Wow. And finish in the top 20 in scoring. So, he wants him to be Lou Alcindor. So, Kadeem Lattin is a wonderful player and incredibly valuable to the Sooners. He's not now or never will be Lou Alcindor, but I learned a lot about, I think, Kadeem Lattin's, he sort of wants to make his own way, wants to create his own path in this March Madness legacy.
Well, and Barry, I think what you say, when you talk about that, I can totally get, because as you mentioned, I did have a chance to talk to Mo Iba. He was in attendance at the introductory event for Brad Underwood as the new Oklahoma State basketball coach, which we'll talk about all that here in just a second. But, he brought up the fact that, David Lattin, fantastic player. They knew he was a really skilled player, but he was only a sophomore on that Glory Road team. And Mo Iba told me that they really didn't know just how much they would get out of David Lattin that season that they won the championship. And then, obviously the impact of that game, that all-black starting lineup for Texas Western, playing an all-white Kentucky starting lineup. And, Mo Iba told me that they didn't think about that really as the season went on. It wasn't really something that they were focused on, but clearly they understood the impact that had, not only that at that point, but more long-term, not just on basketball either, Barry. I mean, you talk about the impact of Glory Road. You're not just talking on sports and college basketball. The implications are huge. So I could see why Kadeem Lattin is maybe trying to say, hey, yeah, I'm proud of that, but I got to do my own thing. I mean, the implications of that situation, like I said, just dramatic across the board.
When Texas Western beat Kentucky in Cole Fieldhouse, College Park, Maryland, March 19th, 1966, the Southwest Conference had not been integrated athletically. There were some black athletes on some campuses, but the football color line was broken in 1966 by Jerry Levias at SMU. That would have been the fall of 66. So we're talking about a landscape and a culture that's foreign to all of us. Mm-hmm. We can't even comprehend that, you know, the SEC and the SWC were completely void of black players. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State had integrated in the late 50s. Some of the northern schools in the Big Ten, Iowa State, Kansas, earlier than that. But down in the southern part of the country, major college sports were still segregated. And that really began to change after 1966. And was Texas Western the only reason? No. But was it a major reason? Yes. So it was an historical game. You know, I said it's not the biggest game in college basketball history, but it may have been the most important game in college basketball history. And now 50 years later, one of the principals, mm-hmm. Big Daddy Lattin, his grandson, has a chance to go to the same Final Four that David Lattin went to.
Yeah, you know, and Barry, I think what you said about the foreign landscape, you know, you talked to Christian James in your story about this, and, you know, he says he's talked to David Lattin. I'm sure just the same way Kadeem has, you know, heard the stories over the years, and Christian James essentially saying, I can't hardly believe some of the things that David Lattin told me about the situations, you know, the experiences that they went through. So totally changed the sports landscape, which, you know, sometimes sports is behind in social change, but a lot of times it's ahead of the curve. And in this case, I think it helped lead the curve, helped lead that change to integration, not only in sports, but in classrooms and colleges and schools in ways that weren't necessarily there before.